Hello, you're very welcome. My name is Lawrence O'Reilly, Senior Energy Consultant, NZEB Designer, Team Lead of the Energy Management here with ORS. Today we're trying something new, the first and hopefully a series of very short webinars across a range of different areas where we'll introduce the topic and quickly run through it in a simple format, hopefully answering some of the queries you might have along the way, while also introducing you to the range of services that ORS provides. So today's topic is NZEB, or Nearly Zero Energy Buildings. Coming from legislation through the European Union, NZEB relates to a high level of energy performance for buildings, both domestic and commercial, which was required to be put into law within each member state of the EU. This, in Ireland, is achieved through amendments to the Technical Guidance Document Part L, Conservation of Fuel and Energy, for both dwellings and buildings other than dwellings. The adaptation of NZEB into Irish building regulations has meant that, from this year, all new buildings must achieve a higher performance and energy efficiency. These improvements are across a range of areas in our buildings, as our image illustrates in the slide here, such as improved performance of our U values, reduction in building fabric heat loss, a larger emphasis on reducing thermal bridging and utilising thermal modelling, optimising solar gain while mitigating overheating, along with the requirement to achieve more airtight structures. Along with this, to comply with TGD Part L, higher efficiency mechanical services must be installed with the requirement of a high level of control for same. This will be relevant for domestic space heating and hot water systems, mechanical ventilation systems and HVAC for commercial use. Furthermore, while the requirement for the use of renewable energy technologies has been mandatory in the domestic setting for quite some time, this has now become a formal requirement in non-domestic units, whereby between 10 to 20% of the primary energy requirement for the building must be provided by on-site renewables such as a heat pump system, solar thermal panels, solar photovoltaic panels, wind turbines, or a combination of all. Of course, there is the requirement for existing buildings to also demonstrate compliance with TGD Part L. This is the case for both domestic and commercial, and applies to projects which involve an extension beyond a specific size, a building undergoing material alteration or a material change of use. The current version of TGDL requires that existing buildings which fall under these categories limit the amount of energy required to operate that building and the quantity of carbon dioxide emissions associated with the energy use as far as is reasonably practical. This is achieved by limiting heat loss where appropriate through the building fabric, while also maximising heat gain as well as ensuring adequate control for services such as heating, ventilation and lighting. Overall though, the question most listeners will likely want to know the answer to is how much of a change are we seeing from the old TGDL regulations to the new current Part L regulations? With regard to domestic projects, we are seeing in the region of a 25% improvement in energy performance when compared against the previous edition of the 2011 Part L. However, the most significant markup is in respect to non-domestic construction projects, where new builds are required to demonstrate an energy performance up to 60% greater than the 2008 edition of Part L. The domestic sector has been in the space of transitioning to low carbon for quite a while this is certainly a new challenge for commercial and non-domestic projects going forward. To finish up our introduction to NZEB, we'd like to answer a few of the FAQs that have come into us recently, which will hopefully help to answer any of the queries you might have. So question 1, how is NZEB conformance checked? Well, this is through the DEEP methodology for residential construction projects and through the NEAT methodology for non-domestic construction projects. These are the same methodologies used for calculating and generating building energy rating certificates, but also have the aside function of measuring conformance with NZEB and TGD Part L. For residential buildings, the only available program to use is known as DEEP4, while the commercial utilises ISFM, and others such as GISFM or IES can also be used. The decision on which to choose is largely to do with the complexity of the building, which the energy consultant will typically decide. Is NZEB required for all new buildings? Well, for the most part, yes. All new residential projects are required to comply with the current edition of Part L, which includes NZEB. There is a transitional period subject to planning approval and the progress of the build, and is typically answered on a case-by-case basis. Are there any exemptions to NZEB? Well, TGDL covers all forms of energy use related to human occupancy, which will cover all residential projects. However, not all commercial units can meet TGD Part L as a result of the specific activity that is occurring within the building. For example, it may not be practical to insulate an airtight building envelope if it has implications on the building's primary function, or if no human occupancy is proven to be expected within that space. This is again very much dealt with on a case-by-case basis, where we would advise that both the certifier of the project and the relevant building control officer be consulted to make a formal decision. At what stage would a specialist NZEB Part L consultant come into a project? This would be at the earliest possible stage. We see an NZEB consultant being very much part of the broader design team who can and should provide input before construction. Best practice is to have a provisional Part L assessment conducted on the proposed building or development at design stage, where a specification can be produced in parallel with the architect, M&E and client's expectations. So, in summary, the aim of today's recorded webinar was to very briefly summarise NZEB and Part L to create a better understanding of what it involves and how it might impact on a project that you are currently involved in. If you do have any additional questions or if you have any suggestions for other topics that you would like the ORS team to cover, please get in contact with our ORS office, or you can reach myself, Lawrence O'Reilly, at l.o'reilly@ors.ie. We are also active on social media and can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Many thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll have the chance to advise you further, but until then, take care.